Let me open this a bit more.
All right, we are live. We're excited to be here today with Roy Vella, the CEO of Next CoLabs. We have so many great conversations, Roy. This is probably our third or fourth that we just really get into to some fun discussions, and so
Sure.
I love sharing all of the conversations I get to have with everybody else. And today is going to be a really fun conversation because as we were thinking about what would be a great topic, right, for this new AI transformation, uh, completely going beyond anything anybody could have ever imagined before, and the capabilities that are out there. The number one thing I hear all the time in this AI revolution is I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right? There's fear, there's just so much coming at us so quickly all the time, and it's easy to just kind of shut down and go, I'm just going to like pause till all this sorts out, which there's a danger to that too, right?
Sure.
About not leaning into this space and really get going. So we thought it'd be great today to really figure out some practical tips on how to thrive in this rapidly changing world, right? So
Sure.
that's going to be the focus today. But Roy, I would love for you to kind of start off with an introduction and what you do, and how
Sure.
kind of what you're focused on right now.
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm an inner city Brooklyn kid. I'm born and raised in New York, but my footprints: New York, San Francisco, London, about a dozen years each, and now I'm outside Boston for about half a dozen. Deep tech geek. Have always loved the convergence of humanity, science, technology, and what manifests. Spent a lot of my career in the fintech world. Worked in mobile commerce, IoT, smart homes, and now the AI moment. So my company is called Next CoLabs, and a CoLab is the convergence of two main trends. It's the remote work, that most of our meetings are happening in digital spaces like this, where there are three parties: local humans, remote humans, and AI.
Mm-hmm.
And then AI as a means of understanding and better collaboration, as the name alludes to, right? And we can get into that further, but that's the focus of my attention these days. And happy to dive into my perspectives on what is AI, what's not AI, and
Yeah.
what's possible.
I think that's been interesting as I've started getting with clients, like, I want to do AI, and then they end up where we really end up is just automation, right? And
So,
what is AI versus standard kind of
sure.
digital transformation? And but
Yeah.
but the key here, and I love the collabs, is that, and I've said this I think in every single webinar I've ever done, it is a people initiative, right? It's about
Completely.
helping bring people together, work better, ties closer to our humanity,
Yes.
and optimizing the way we connect, the way we understand each other, the way we're communicating, right? Those are the huge things that we're seeing
Yes.
in addition to the productivity. Before we get started, I always like to start with a few stats just to get people thinking and recognizing this. And I know you and I had this conversation about just the pace of change that is creating this overwhelm and burnout already. And we are so early on that we've got to address this burnout that's happening. But just a couple quick stats before we dig into the details here. First of all, over 1,000 new AI tools and platforms launched in the last 2 years between 2023 and 2025. I
Is
think
that
that,
it? I think
I
it's
think
more
that's
than
low.
that. Yeah.
I think that's a maybe a hallucination.
Yeah.
That I think it's more that it's almost like that a month is what it feels like right now.
It's a Cambrian explosion. No
Yeah,
question. Yeah.
and the I know that you have the detail on this because you sent me a really incredible chart that showed like this elbow curve, right?
Yes.
Of growth that's
Exponential curve.
happening.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
Yeah, and not just
do
in
that a little
processing
bit.
power and AI. Like, there are exponential curves all over the place, and I'm happy to share that paper. I'll post it in wherever
Yeah, let's
we
post
post
it
it.
out in the comments after this because that was just very awakening. And that, I mean, that's even probably behind just even over the last 6 months since we first met.
Yeah,
But just the pace of adoption of these tools, and we're still just getting started.
Yes.
of, how many people, billions of users already using these technologies within the last couple years.
Yeah.
But the other one I'm going to mention before, digging into this exponential curve, the global spending on these AI technologies, it's saying expected to reach 154 billion by 2020 this year,
In
right?
terms of revenue. Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just the investments, we all are hearing about it, but let's talk it a little bit more about that. Can you share a little bit about what you were seeing on that curve and
Sure,
talk
sure.
us through what is happening here to start up that's creating this
Sure.
overwhelmed
Yeah,
feeling?
I mean, I think it's worth taking one quick step back and saying there's two AIs. Okay, there's real AI, 50, 60 years of machine learning, natural language processing, data science, been happening for a long time. And then there's LLMs. LLMs are one and the most recent manifestation that everyone's aware of. Most people say AI and they mean LLMs, and LLMs are fascinating because language they appear to speak English very well and have access to effectively all human information. But LLMs unfortunately are deeply misunderstood for very good reasons. One, as I have said to you before, we appear to have just ignored half a century of GUI and gone back to an MS-DOS command line. I'm not sure who thought that was a good idea. And then two, we ignored a couple of decades of search engine query response. So the first thing that people did in 2023 was ask it a factual question and get the wrong answer. And then, it's very poorly named. It wasn't meant to be a consumer name. Artificial sounds fake, not real. And intelligence implies thoughtfulness and correctness, which makes the wrong answer seem even worse, right? I mean, truthfully, LLMs are augmented imagination. They expand the possibility set and they compress time, but they're not trying to be right. They don't have cut and paste. They don't, that is not their driver, right? The tool explosion, the Cambrian explosion of thousands of new tools, I would say the vast majority, like 99%, are skins on top of the foundational models, right? They're just adding UX where there, as we already said, was no UX, right? And that's useful because the user experience is essential to the whole.
And tailored use cases, right, to job and role and industry and all of the detail. But I think that is the key thing. There was a question in the chat from Willem Goots was asking about, like, I'm concerned about the number of tools that are happening at this pace. I had never thought, and like, where to even start, right? It is really this kind of, the impact is, this fear of job displacement, the burnout, just 60% of professionals really feeling overwhelmed about this pace of technology change. But yet the adoption gap.
So I would say a few things. One is that this is the pace is real and not going to go away. We are on an exponential curve. As I said, I'm happy to share about that. And exponential, not just in AI, there's exponential curves across the piece. I tell people LLMs are cute. The deep science that's happening in AI right now is mind-boggling, like just absolutely staggering. But to just stay in LLMs, because that's what most people are experiencing, our mission statement is amplify human potential. And we actually believe strongly that this is a humanizing moment, that this is augmentation at the top. It makes you more productive, effective, prolific, but it's automation at the bottom. The good news is we have a word for this already. We call it busy work. We're going to give the busy work to the machine. Anything that's tedious, repetitive, dull, that's machine work. Human work goes to the human. And whether we appreciate it or not, we've lived through this before. 100 years ago, most of us were on the farm. 75 years ago, most of us were in the factory. 50 years ago, most of us were in the office. And now you're in your office at home. I'm in my office at home. And so there's a migration. But it is a change. There will be a change. And it will be painful. And there will be displacements. But I do think it's going to accelerate our ability to get things done pretty dramatically.
Right. And that quote, and I hear it, I think, daily. So I'm going to repeat it too, so everybody else can hear it daily, right? Is
Sure.
it's not the AI is going to take your job. It's the person that knows AI. So anybody that's on this call and listening, you're ahead of the curve because you're the person that's going to learn AI and be the one that becomes more relevant in your work and your day-to-day work by leaning in. And I think that is one of the, we're going to give our 5 top tips for what to do. The number one is to adopt this new lifelong learning mindset. And I would even say, like I said, when we had the hallucination moment just a moment ago, develop a mindset of questioning.
Sure.
It's both of those things, both lifelong learning, but don't just blanket adopt and say, yeah, I think everything's perfect. It's not. There's some things to be worked through, but just upskilling, it's getting better over time and it'll continue to.
Yeah.
But really that upskilling, I think, is one of the ways that you can avoid the burnout, the fear. The more you learn, the less fear you're going to have.
Completely. Yeah, and look, also appreciate what the tool is, right? So part of our challenge at the moment is that it's been oversold. So people thought they were buying an end product machine and they were actually getting a beginning product machine, right? So if you think you're going to hit enter and hit print, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Right. But if I told you in advance you're going to get 50, 60, 70% of the way there, and now you take it over the line, that's great. But if your expectation is 100% and you get 50, 60, 70%, you're disappointed, right? Like, so this is the thing. And that's the other thing I would say is that LLMs overall are a blank sheet of paper. What do I mean by that? You and I are auto calibration machines. We see each other, we hear accents, we see age, we look at profiles, and we adjust. If one of us was a not native English speaker, we would speak differently, different speed, cadence, tone, vocabulary. We are constantly adjusting for the audience.
Right.
AI has no ability to do that. It doesn't know who it's talking to. So what does it do? Go ahead.
I'm gonna put a pin. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have a kind of real use case with my son where he's been taking French. He's doing a bachelor's in English with a minor in French. And so he's using AI. Everybody is. Everybody should.
Yep.
Right? Like, totally. But he found that as he was typing, sometimes he'd include a French word here and there. And he's like, I didn't realize that all of a sudden I was speaking in French. The AI adopted the language he was and just realized he was having more French tendencies. And so it was like this French English mix.
The AI is happy to converse in Franglais or Spanglish or whatever mixed language you choose, for sure.
But for sure. I agree with you on the core of like we naturally do this, right? As far as making adjustments and how we connect, how we communicate.
But so to finish that, like what does the AI do?
Mm-hmm.
It meets you at the mean. It doesn't know who you are. It doesn't know if you're a PhD or a grammar school child. So it meets you at the mean and it treats you like you're the mean. So basically 2 IQs of 100.
Mm-hmm.
Not so impressive at the end of the day, right? Like, and it's just taking the safe bet. Let's be clear, on a bell curve, the mean is the safest bet you can make, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the AI can be whoever you want it to be.
Right.
I can go up to any bot and say, I have a PhD in particle astrophysics, and I'd like to discuss quantum mechanics, and you're Einstein.
Right.
No problem. You and I might not follow the conversation, but the bot can certainly have it. It can be at whatever level you want. And it's a time compression machine. So what do I mean by that? In the knowledge economy, 99% of work product goes from a rough draft pretty linearly to a final draft.
Right.
Why? Because I'm not rude. I don't tell my team to give me 10 drafts and then I'll pick one.
Yeah.
Right? So most work product starts with a rough draft, and wherever that rough draft happened to land is the parameters, and then we kind of tune it.
Yeah.
I can go to any bot and say, give me 12 drafts from 5th grade level to PhD level. Okay, this one in the middle, I love that. Blow that out. Ooh, the tone on page 2. Like the ability to iterate is crazy.
And the speed of iteration. Here's what's interesting with the clients that we're building custom flows and things like anywhere from, content is a big one. And so like RFP responses, grant writing, all of these things. Even in our automated flows that we're building out, what I found is that you still have this factor of human interaction must be there. And
Yes.
there isn't one I have built out yet that does not have like a stopgap to make sure that everybody's what it produces, it reduces the time, but you need that approval layer, and you need the human to go, okay, this is valid or not valid before I truly click the button and send it off, right?
Yeah. No,
And
I
so,
mean, again, it is creative, and people don't like when I say that, but the reality is, it is taking and cross fertilizing across all of human knowledge, and it's making shit up. Like, let's be clear, like, it may or may not be accurate. You definitely want to check sources on anything factual with any of the bots, and a lot of them now, almost all of the main foundation models are citing sources, right?
right. And so you can cross-reference there. You definitely need that human in the loop. But I think even this morning I saw an article on DeepSeek because it launched.
Yes.
And the fact that if you really look at it, let's talk a little bit about ethical concerns, not just factual, right?
Sure.
So I haven't looked into this yet. I just got it this morning, but they were saying that if you ask about ethical or government related items, U.S., it'll talk about all the challenges with the U.S., China, none. And so there's definitely inherent biases that are built into these models.
Sure. DeepSeek, if you're using DeepSeek, the model that's hosted in China, it will not talk about Tiananmen Square. It will not talk about, there's a whole bunch of things that it won't touch.
Excluded. And
the miracle is it's open source. So you can access the DeepSeek model through Perplexity now, or just install it on your own computer using Ollama. And it's incredible. Like, so one of the things about DeepSeek that shook the world is that, and now we're not exactly sure how accurate everything is. Like, did it only take millions to train it? Blah, blah, blah. But it's open source. So you have an open source, fairly inexpensive model to build that has come up very quickly to the level of most of the foundation models that have spent billions of dollars to do so.
Investment side, yes.
And yeah, so there's a few Chinese models coming out that are challenging the whole assumption about how much processing power does it take, how much training does it take, how expensive is it to use and do. Like, I mean, by the way, I also tell people, like, all of this race between the models, the vast majority of us don't need it to have a PhD in applied math.
For what you're doing. Yeah.
So if people don't know, I'm a huge fan of Ethan Mollick. He's a professor at Wharton Business School. He wrote a book called Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with AI. Definitely worth following on LinkedIn. He posts 3 or 4 times a day different insights about using it. He insists that all his students use AI for everything that they do.
Yeah.
And one of the key insights that I think everyone should embrace is that if AI gets no better than it was yesterday, it's amazing.
It's like, still, you think about how, like, I think about going back without it, and I'm like, I don't know how I functioned, right? How did I function before? And it would be disruptive to go back. So I think it's good to go, okay, we're just going to go forward. The more I can learn, the more I can adopt, the more efficient, the more impact I'm going to be able to do, both in my not just my professional career, but the work that I do within our nonprofit work at Moms, and being able to do impact work, right? There's and then even just as a mom or as a parent, or like, there's just so many different things and applications across the board.
Well, and that's the other thing I would say is that people, so for instance, using AI, staying ahead, which is the theme here, right? Why does AI stop? Why do you ask AI a question or give it a task and it stops? I mean, it gives you a few paragraphs, maybe a few pages, depending on what you ask for, and then it stops. It doesn't have to stop. It stops because of us. Because if it spat out a 10-page paper with every request, we wouldn't use it. We'd be like, oh, you're giving me work to do.
Yeah.
One of the miracles about AI, and one of the things I love, is you should almost always say, tell me more, or keep going. Like, just because it has more. There's plenty. It has plenty more on whatever you're working on.
Yeah. Even asking, What am I not thinking about?
What am I not thinking about?
Yeah.
Great.
What am I not asking?
Right.
Because
Right.
sometimes some of the best insights I have put out there are like, okay, what else should I be thinking about?
Yep.
And
Yep.
and instead of me instructing the AI
Completely.
to do exactly, like, tell me what I'm not thinking about. It's almost like that strategic partner that helps you see your blind spots.
Totally. Well, I
And
mean,
just
the other
have
thing is
conversation.
it can not only be Einstein, it can be whoever you want it to be. So my
Yeah.
target market is mothers in India who buy whatever. And I can say, here's who you are. Okay,
Yeah.
now evaluate this, what I'm giving to you. Like it literally can, it's the first time really we can get to step into the shoes of someone else.
Right.
You can tell it to be, and by the way, I also say repeatedly, context over content. So first, tell it who you are. This is my background, my education, where I'm trained. This is my role at the moment. Here's our websites and PDFs. Here's a book our founder wrote. Here's some competitors that do similar things to what we do.
Right.
In this exchange, here's who you are. You're my client in this market with this many employees facing these challenges. Like the more context you dump in on the 80-20, I tell people spend 80% of the time on context.
Yeah.
It's an untrained intern. Give it
Mhm.
all the background it
All
needs.
the data. Yes.
Then do 20% on, okay, here's now what I need from you. Now that you're up to speed on who I am and who you are, let's solve this problem.
Right. And
Most
then
people spend no time on context. They're like, here's a problem. The
yeah,
AI's like, I don't even know who I'm talking to, but whatever. Let's go.
And I think that's a key point in understanding. I've kind of find some people know how to do this, some don't, as far as understanding that you can custom create GPTs or your own to really put that data to use. So, you know, your vision, mission, and values, what you've done in the past, your prior strategies, where you want to go in the future, and you prep with data and context, like you're saying, before moving forward in having those conversations. Doing a generic chat, you're not going to get where you want to go.
Yeah.
Some of the other things that
I also say it's deeply counterintuitive. No other tool that we've had so far do you have this type of interaction with. The metaphor I love that I use all the time, we've been chopping wood with axes for forever. Now I hand people a chainsaw, so they swing it at the tree. And they go, this is a bad axe. I'm like, it is a bad axe. Please don't swing it. But let me show you how to turn it on. Right? Like it's a fundamentally different tool for the same objective, right?
Oh yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because it what I find is it is a mindset shift in just, like we were saying, don't ask it to do something, ask it to do it for you. I've even had to go through this as far as, you know, like, hey, what's the formula to use in Excel? And then I'm like, well, why am I asking that? I should just have it do it for me. I don't need to know the formula anymore, you know? So it's kind of like this mindset shift of like, how do I just hand stuff over that I hadn't really thought of using it that way in the past.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting nuts. Like the Claude, I was playing with Claude yesterday, and Claude, you drop in a CSV file and it will make a full interactive dashboard of the data in the file that you can then interact with. And you can watch it coding. It's coding the dashboard and then it runs it.
It's absolutely incredible. You know, doing strategy and dashboards and updating and metrics and pulling in data, it just, it's such a relief, honestly.
I mean, Willem asked earlier about like, so what does it mean for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? Like 1 year, largely the same. 3 to 5 years, I tell people 3 to 5 years is the right time period from each of us having a personal AI that sees what we see, hears what we hear, and I'm able to say, hey, Joe, because that's what I named my AI. Yeah. Who's that French guy I talked to? We talked about his daughter. He brought up that book. That'll be sufficient context for Joe to say, yeah, you spoke to Pierre August 6th. He's Belgian, not French, but I see why you would say that. But the book is this. Would you like me to buy it? Just extended RAM on all of our interactions.
It's incredible. That's where really that super intelligence comes into play, right? Between human to AI, human to computer, superpower.
Miracles start to happen, right? So Joe not only is witnessing everything that I'm seeing and hearing, but is retroactive. Joe opts into my alma maters, my clubs, my churches, my groups, whatever it is. And one day I'm minding my own business, and Joe says, "Hey, Roy, an alum just posted a job that's perfect for you."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the alum. I'm not looking for a job, but I got this agent who's up. And I see this visually as sort of a clearing substrate. We're going to have this clearing network that matches supply and demand globally, right? Yeah, where these agents are just kind of looking out for us and opting into our networks of influence and networks of people that we know and friends, family, colleagues.
Which brings up, goes back to the fear that we started with of people being concerned of how much is known about them, right? I mean, it's that big brother, how, like, it's,
if people were that concerned, they should close their Gmail account.
Just go off the grid, which would be, I don't know how anybody would do it anymore, right? But I
don't know. Look, but the reality is Apple's in the most likely spot to have Joe, right? Because
it's right here, here, probably listening to us right now.
Well, and because they are very clear, you buy hardware and software from us, everything is encrypted. We don't have access to it. No one has access to it. We are serving you because you're a buyer of our hardware and software. Adding that Apple intelligence layer that enables me to have Joe, is not far-fetched at all. Like that's, and by the way, the only reason it's 3 to 5 years, it's hardware, and everybody's working on it. It's glasses that see and hear. And you were at CES this year, like, oh my God, it's all about how do I capture and catch everything that's happening to you so that I can add value to you. And whether it's a Humane pin or a rabbit or glasses from Meta or Ray-Ban has it integrated. Yeah, they're all working on that hard.
It's the convergence of all of these things that have come together over, these last 20, 30 years that are now powering each other together, Internet of Things, the Wi-Fi connection access, our hardware capabilities, in addition to the AI. It's not one thing that is driving this. It's the convergence of all of these things together that are escalating, and creating this pace of change that we're all kind of trying to figure out together. There's a comment in the chat, and so I'm going to put this out to you, Roy. It says, is your personal AI Joe being built by any group of AI innovators today that you've seen? And can you bullet point some of the initiatives beyond just Apple?
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of, so in terms of hardware, as I said, the Humane pin was a couple of Apple designers and engineers who went out and built it, and it didn't do too well. It sits on your chest or clips on your collar or whatever. There's the Meta glasses. There's the Ray-Ban glasses that have ChatGPT integrated. I mean, literally CES, there were just tons of people trying to figure this out. But forget the hardware. There's a ton of software platforms that are already trying to do that. They're like, integrate us into your email and your calendar, and we'll help you make your day better. There's a ton of stuff going on in that regard, and it's coming. It's almost inevitable.
Some of it, like, even so, one of the platforms that we implement is called Workplace AI, and it's for leadership development. So it sits in it's not just your AI note taker, but it's actually providing sentiment data. It's telling you if you speak too much in the conversation. Are you interrupting people? Are you following proper leadership guidelines on how to lead your team? Like, it's that human factor that, a lot of these things are here right now. I mean, there's vocal AI, like, just to understand our emotion. There's, I call it, you are being emotionally monitored, whether you realize it or not. Your shopping preferences, you are being monitored at this moment. every day.
There's no question in that regard. And,
Yeah.
and the question is, are you using it to be better, to have
Yeah.
better interactions? I mean, that's what our thing is about meeting collaboration and how to have more effective meetings, right? It's like, and all of a sudden we have the ability to mine that mountain of unstructured data. Like that's incredible. We really couldn't have done that before this LLM revolution. And they will be getting cheaper and faster and better. And that's the other thing I tell people, like the top models on the planet are pretty much free and available for you to play with and use. And you should try them all. Go bang on Claude, try Gemini. I mean, if you use Google products at all, you can't avoid Gemini. Gemini is integrated into everything. Copilot in the Microsoft world, like they're all there and available to experiment with and play with. And you can't break them, so go ahead, have fun.
Go try. I think the one thing in the workplace, and this goes to our second point on, where to start with this overwhelm. We talked about adopting this lifelong mindset, but then really, and this is what I do. We do AI readiness audits, and we'll go in and identify what are the top priorities. And this should be just an ongoing evaluation of your work, how you work. But really the number one thing is to learn how to leverage AI smarter for what you're doing, your use cases, your role right now, but do it in a smart way, be aware of privacy, some of the things like you don't want to put your, PII data out in an open model, but look at tools like you were saying, and, there's a lot out there in the platforms you're already using. Start where you're at. Like identify, am I on Microsoft or Google? Leverage what's out there today. Just start getting familiar. And I'm sure a lot of people on the call have already started to do that. But then in order to get that 30% saving of your time, prioritize, kind of keep a daily log of like, what are the things I'm doing that are taking a lot of my time? Is it scanning my mailbox? Is it, okay, I don't get my activities? That's one of the things I do is I record and say, okay, what are all the tasks that I need to do? Summarize it for me. And so I can make sure I'm not letting things slip through the cracks. Like just do that inventory, it's kind of an easy way of just getting used to it for what you need it for right now.
Completely. Yeah. And look, I also don't want to, so it says on my profile, skeptical techno optimist. Like I'm optimistic, but you have to be skeptical too, right? You have to be challenging. I mean, there are downsides that are, in fact, I almost always make a point of saying you should have a safe word for your family. So what do I mean by that? It takes 10 to 15 seconds of video for my mother to receive a very convincing video call of my son. And there's a little bit of blood dripping down his head, and her amygdala immediately triggers, what do you need? What can I do? Like, you need an out-of-band way to authenticate that the person you see and that you're talking to is them.
Yeah.
And a safe word is the concept that is, used most of the time. Like, and the funny part about it is you don't even really need a safe word. You need the concept of a safe word. Because as soon as my mother says, oh my God, what's the safe word? They hang up. You're not out running the bear. You're out running the other guy who doesn't know anything about a safe word and who immediately takes money out of their bank account and sends it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, but this is the world we're in. It doesn't take much to make a very convincing
yeah, you have to question everything, right?
Trusting your eyes, a little dangerous.
My sons and I have also had a lot of conversations like, do you think that's real? Do you think it's not? Why not? Right? You have to build that as a new skill set in this day and age of the ever questioning mindset. That is the
there's
new normal.
within, I mean, some would make the case now, but certainly within a year, you will not be able to tell if a video is generated or real. Like that is not a thing. That's not, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, that's over. Like
the pace of progress is pretty incredible. And that's part of what we've been doing is these agentic AI outreach, multi-channel. That's one of the number one opportunities, right? And those, quick, low-hanging fruit of where can we see the highest productivity is.
But the truth is, we're using AI against AI, right? So you can, an AI can look at a video and say those shadows are just wrong. Like that's not, you know what I mean? Like there are ways to analyze a video and say, is it generated or not?
Yeah.
But for the normal human just glancing at something,
Yeah,
no
you would
way.
be able to tell. I mean,
No way.
12 fingers and 3 arms, that's pretty identifiable, but those are starting to get clear.
Those are gone. Yeah, those mistakes. I mean, now we're doing full video. Some of the, I don't know if you like, just go to YouTube AI movie. Like it's
It is.
crazy.
We do it for family fun, actually. We'll sit and laugh around about some of those that are out there, or even create our own just for entertainment reasons. But
Yeah.
you can make it fun. You can also get, like I said, very nervous very quickly. But I think, like you're saying, build that questioning mindset, learn the boundaries, I would say, of what it can do, can't do. Start leaning in on it, though.
Yeah. I mean, the the fear factor is real, but it's the fear of the unknown by definition. Look, we are the result, literally, of fearful ancestors. All of the people who ran towards the unknown, who said, "Oh, I don't know what that sound is. Let me go look." They got eaten. Like we are the evolutionary result of the chicken shits. Like, I mean, that's just how it works, right? So of course we're change averse.
You're welcome, right? It's okay to worry. That's normal.
Totally normal, totally fine. You should be.
Because there are concerns that we should be aware of, but that doesn't mean we avoid it.
No, exactly.
I think we did a certification training on AI about a year ago for probably about 100 people were there. And I remember there was a question at the end of the event, and they said, there's all this fear of like people that are going to be fraudulent and doing all of these horrible things. And I said, well, that's why you're here. It's because there's always going to be bad actors. You need to be the good actors. And we need more people leaning in and learning and understanding and becoming familiar and not avoiding it. And I think that's where not avoiding, this isn't a tech thing. This is a people thing. This is a societal impacts. There's everybody, not just productivity, right? But I think that the more that we can understand that we're part of the solution to those problems.
Agreed. And look, I think the GDP impacts will be substantial. Like, again, just a clearing network of supply and demand that knows what I'm looking for and knows what you're looking for and connects the dots for us is huge. Like, that's a huge thing. I mean, I think that alone will be amazing for a lot of people.
And so I want to move to kind of our third tip or trick within the session, which is to focus on soft skills, emotional intelligence, empathy. These are all things that, in my 30-year career were not a priority.
That's unfortunate.
It was about results focus, which, as a business, we need results, but how are we getting those results? And there was, a thing that came out from Deloitte, about 75% of executives believe that soft skills will be more important or just as important as the AI adoption, because the more we rely on AI to do the upfront funnels, guess what? People still want that human interaction and connection and things like empathetic sales, empathetic client success. And you're going to have maybe fewer people doing that, but it's going to be those that really can understand empathy and emotional intelligence that are going to be even more critical.
Well, so, and there's also a very deep irony here that the more you are that way with the AI, the better your results will be. It is crazy, but it has been shown and proven repeatedly. If you say thank you, if you say please, if you say take your time, think this through. Like, if you treat the AI like a human, it performs better.
So that's a true thing, because I've had this conversation. I think I saw Tyler is one of the consultants that works with us at Rise Next, and we'd had this conversation on, do you say thank you to your AI as you're building it, or please and thank you, and so we've had this discussion. So it's really interesting because we've gone back and forth on this. On like,
there's
how do
tons of studies and science on it right now, that the more you interact with it as a fellow human, and by the way, it's very, very clear that feedback is essential. So what do I mean by that? Every time I interact with AI, you want to consciously be aware to say, this is good, this is bad. I liked what you did here. This is not really what I'm looking for. The more, every time you get a response, again, it's like a smart intern. If you tell the intern, oh, this was really good. Okay, I want more like this. This part, nah, we do it this way. You get better work out of the intern. And it's the same with AI. The more feedback and the more looping that you're doing with it, letting it know what it got right, what it got wrong, what it could have done differently, the better it performs. Because again, blank sheet of paper. You don't tell it, it has no idea. It gives you an answer and you go, did I do okay? Was that good? Like it doesn't know.
That's one of the things that I found is I find bias, which does happen, and it happens a lot. I will tell it, you're being biased.
Yep,
this is
100%.
not okay. You should not, right? And so I've done that multiple. One example was in my MIT classes. We were doing one where we had to use different AIs to create a story, and the story was supposed to be about when you're in financial need and how to get out of it and what they did. The AI said, well, they're in financial need because the wife likes to buy shoes.
Oh, so look, I mean, that's the AI being us. It takes our biases and it spits them out.
It just regurgitates them. And so that's what, don't just take it as a blanket. Okay, this is normal behavior. It's got all of our human inadequacies built in.
Completely.
Right. And so I've had the same thing on, building images, giving me pictures of women working, and there was a lot of women in lingerie. There was women, doing dishes. It was awful.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's trained on the internet. And if you've been on the internet, it's not the nicest place, really, at the end of the day.
So
but look, I mean, that's the other thing is like, even when you're criticizing it, you say that was a good try. Thanks for the effort. But it's something that, again, treating it like a human, the same empathy that you give to your fellow human is amazing in terms of work product, in terms of improving what comes out. And then on the other side, I would say that, we are reaching a point where I believe we're going to see digital goods that say human made. Like when we moved into mass production in the factory, we still have handmade goods. In fact, when something's handmade, you go, "Ooh, this is handmade." Like we brag about this is handmade. It's the same thing in the knowledge economy. This is going to be human made, not AI made. It's not going to be auto generated. It's going to be human generated. We can photocopy paintings, but the original painting with the brushstrokes, we like that. So that's all going to evolve in terms of how we use it.
Right?
It's more valuable.
It's going to be extremely more valuable, and we already see it in some aspects. So I'm going to move on to the fourth thing that we can do to stay updated without that overload. And I have asked a lot of the panelists that I've had on what do you do to stay on top of things, because you can get information from so many sources right now, and it's just figuring out what works for you. But I'm going to ask you, and then we can talk a little bit about different ways that people can get information in, a drip system. So it's not like fire hose, right? Like little bits at a time add up. So what are some of the things that you've done to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm insatiably curious. I'll be frank, I'm a bit of a junkie. Like I love the bleeding edge. I've always been on the bleeding edge. It's about following trusted sources, first of all. So we mentioned Ethan Mollick. There's tons of guys who have fascinating Substacks and email lists and posts on whatever platform, LinkedIn or Substack or X or whatever. Mm-hmm. When you see something that resonates, click follow. Just like, I want more of that, you can also use AI to summarize things, right? So give me what's going on today? What's the news of the day? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's another useful tool. I don't know if I trust it yet in that regard. I trust it more and more as it gets to know me, right? The more it gets to know you, again, knowing who the audience is important for it. And if it doesn't know who you are, it's not going to be useful, really.
Yeah. There's two things that I would say here. One is be careful of those algorithms, though. because I've seen a lot of nuanced trying to push you different ideas and ideals. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing in America with this extremism is becoming because of these algorithms that are tailoring
it's echo
negative
chamber
or influence content. So I would say still stay in the loops, but be aware that you might be targeted through these algorithms and being influenced by them.
So
and
in that regard,
kind of have like a broad spectrum of sources.
Yeah, I would tell you in that regard about algorithms and echo chambers and all of that. There's a great site called Ground News. The entire site is ground.news. News is the like the .com. What do you call that? There's a name for that, and I'm blanking on it. But whatever. Ground News doesn't produce news at all. All it does is show you where news was presented. And their best product, which they will email to you every day, or you can see it on the side of their site or in their app, is called the Blind Spot Report. It shows you all of the news that was presented primarily negative. I didn't do that on purpose. The Blind Spot Report shows you all the news that was presented on one side or the other. So, and it's an eye opener. Like no matter where you sit on the spectrum, the news of the day on the right and the left is different news. Like it's
completely different. And we've done that where we'll have, MSNBC, Fox, CNN. We kind of hit them all just to get a broad spectrum of like, I want to kind of.
That's what Ground News does for you. Is it sums it up. It goes, here's the news everybody saw. Here's the news that only the left or the right saw.
Yeah, number one productivity goal right there for me. So I'm not having to search all those news sites all the time. That's a great one. But I found the other one I was going to mention is Perplexity has a news feed on it, and that I've actually really enjoyed it. It seems to be kind of more moderate, not so it's the news, right?
And Perplexity
with references,
it's
so
constantly
citing sources. Where it came from, where it was sourced, so I can understand maybe some of the limited, filtering that was going on as I received it, and I think it really. Staying on top of it is important. And I'm similar to you. We have kind of a similar, we can go down a rabbit hole on a lot of these technology things, but then figuring out how like the overall market and society and the global aspects and tying it all together, I think is really important to stay informed. There's a couple of newsletters that I have really enjoyed that give me like, what is the latest tool of the day? What is the latest I think Superminds, and there's one called Next AI, I think is the other one. It just gets delivered to my email box every day.
Totally.
So I can kind of stay on top and research and evaluate different platforms and tools. One of the things I found as I look into some of these is they're kind of, there's a lot of filtering that has to happen because like you were saying, they're just putting new user interfaces on the same core capabilities. And so you kind of have to take, I'm aware of them, but I haven't really found maybe a handful that I'm like, yeah, this is next level great. This is what I would propose to a client, right? There's not many that I'm like, oh, wow, this is changing the world.
And again, I think it's the humanity part, right? Like, I can look it up and post it later, but there's one that I get where the guy, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, but he literally says, this is essential. This is important. This is the rest, basically. So when he says something's essential, I read it. Done. Okay. Like I know him. Like that's done. And so that trust that you gain with
sources and
a generic corporate email that comes out that has lists of things. I'm like,
the ebooks.
I might have written it. So you need to decide what your trusted sources are based on what your interests are, for sure.
It's going back to what the role and reason and what could be a priority and saving for time or interest area, right? And then going from there. The last one that we're gonna kind of give as our final top 5 as we kind of get wrapped up, and then we'll kind of see if there's any other questions here. The importance of staying connected in the community and into different groups, like to your point, what are your interests? within our alumni from technology and a lot of our students, we have over 600 in our community, reconnecting them, not just as an overall community, but these subgroups. So, if you're really interested in user experience design and bringing in and doing programs like that, a lot of conferences, I think staying connected, it also helps from a networking and human connection standpoint that we all so much need and have found the importance of that, but also learning together, growing together, attending webinars, attending events. Those are all really great ways to just kind of keep a pulse on what's happening within the space and staying informed and learning best practices as you go.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Again, trusted sources and exposure to folks and getting, I mean, I take, if someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, that I don't know, I always say the same thing. I'm like, happy to chat and connect. Like, let's, because there's something to learn from everyone. And that's part of the curiosity, the growth mindset. Like I'll often end up on a call with just yesterday, I had a call with a person who's in university and they were thank you so much for making the time. And I'm like, yeah, no, like you have something to teach me. Like you have a lens on the world I simply don't have. Like age alone, never mind location and native language and other things. Like there's something to learn from everyone, and understanding that. And I tell people often, I'm like, if I don't learn something from you on this exchange, that's on me. I didn't ask the right questions. I'm not being curious. I don't, and that's the thing. Like these communities of interests, there's so much to learn. It's a rich.
I walk away with something every time. I do a lot of panels and public speaking, and every time I do a panel, I just want to sit and listen to the rest of the panel, honestly, because I end up walking away. I'm like, they were like, I always learn something. And that's why I enjoy doing panels. It's just, I'm like, oh my gosh, all this amazing mindset that usually comes together I love it. I love.
And again, back to AI, like AI gives you access to all of that, right? Like you can ask it to be whoever you cross paths with someone or hear someone that you're not on a live interaction with, say, be that person or be like that person. I mean, if it's a famous person, it can be that person. If it's not a famous person, it can be like that person. Describe who they are and then say, I'd like to have more conversation. Like, it's not, I'm not saying that that's a replica for that person precisely, but you can dig into a perspective that's not your own. And that's the interesting thing.
We did a webinar a couple months ago on this and how to create an AI avatar of your boss and how to, put all the emails that they may have had or any memos or their background and they're like just you get to know them. And then like maybe you're prepping for a meeting and you have a conversation with them.
Why not?
And their feedback prior to going in and like get some ideas, like, getting to know people. It's an interesting use case, isn't it? To go, okay, I'm going to.
I mean, that's not far-fetched at all. You can see a world where you have pre-meetings with the avatar of your boss, and then you have the meeting with your boss.
I love it. I think not only that, but I'm still trying to create my own avatars. How do I replicate myself out there? I have people like, you're doing so much, Trina. How many avatars do you have running right now? And I'm like, I need to get more. Honestly,
exactly.
Like how do I?
I mean, look, all of the, Tony Robbins and blah, blah, blah. You can talk to artificial Tony or you can talk to real Tony. They cost different, but that the ability to replicate yourself as an influencer, that's like a no-brainer. People are going to eat that up for sure.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do I'll have to maybe put that webinar together on like how to create yourself as, and get yourself out there as an influencer, since I'm trying to figure that out myself right now.
Have you played with Notebook LM?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah,
and creating the podcast, and I've actually taken my book and had it create like a whole course and create content, and it's all me, right? It's my voice, it's my words.
Yeah.
But then being able to coach, based on work and content I've already created. I don't have to create it again, right? And be able to get a better use of it. I think it's amazing. So I know we're coming up a little bit on time. I'm going to do a quick review of these last, these 5 things that we feel like are going to be the best things to be able to help you move through and deal with the overwhelm and the burnout. We talked about adopting this lifelong mindset. First of all, just be open, be willing to listen, but have a questioning mindset along with that. Just, even if you pick one tool a month and say, that's what I'm going to learn this month, right?
Yep.
By the end of the year, you'll know 12 new tools. And then you identify those productivity improvements on where you could implement and figure out, okay, how can I become more productive in creating my AI agent? I don't know, whatever it is for you, whatever it is. And then really focus on your soft skills too. I don't think it's just the technical knowledge. I think start to think about what value do you bring from an awareness, bringing in our life experiences, like you mentioned, the importance of that, being able to hear others and be able to connect to others is going to be a critical soft skill.
The Bachelor of Arts is coming roaring back because it's a language model, like the philosophy majors, the English majors, everybody who worked on words and letters. Yeah, pretty good.
Kind of humanities go, right? And then staying updated without the overload. Just those quick, daily, oh, here's a new idea. Here's something new, newsletters, podcasts. You're all listening to this webinar, so that's a great start, right?
Sure.
And then last, just the participation events. I know if you're here in Utah, we've been running monthly training and networking and workshop events, so you can subscribe and attend those. We've been connecting our community quite a bit here through this AI Masters program. So we're trying to help everybody get familiar, get comfortable. Let's not be overwhelmed. I myself struggle with it, and these are kind of the things I've found. So Roy, as we kind of wrap up here, I definitely want to get the opportunity for everybody to be able to connect with you.
Of course,
You have such amazing things going on with these collaboration and meeting effectiveness work. So why don't you share a little bit about how people can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I am blessed with a fairly unique name. Like Roy Vella at anything kind of gets to me. Roy Vella at Gmail, Roy Vella at LinkedIn, Roy Vella. I mean, I'm easy to find. Next CoLabs happens to end in .io, nextcolabs.io. But yeah, I'm happy to connect. And by the way, when people reach out to me, you will experience what I said. You're gonna get a response that says, "Happy to connect. Let's have a chat."
So we did.
I'd love to chat.
We had a friend of ours connect us, and I think he had found you on LinkedIn, and then said, "Hey, you should meet Trina," and that's how it works, right? And
exactly.
Really great conversations. Today's conversation has been so great. We've got a chat full of wonderful comments saying thank you, great ideas. So appreciate you sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom with everybody today. And we're going to wrap it up for today's session, but please reach out to Roy. And if you have any needs for us to be able to help with upskilling, reskilling, or AI integration into your own workforces, you can get a hold of us at risenext.ai as well. So thanks everyone for being here. All right, take care.
Cheers. Bye.